And we started the recording.
All right.
And this is Tech Talks 5. And we have Julie here.
Hello.
And I'm Victor Matthews. This is ITE Mavens. And we are going to be going over. There's a few things that happened this week that is pretty exciting to talk about. There was an Apple press conference. Google announced that they're getting into the gaming industry.
Google is getting into the gaming industry to making games,
They're not making games.
but a platform to
They're
sell
creating
them,
like a platform.
similar to Steam and Epic.
It's more of a streaming platform, and we'll get into it when we get.
Okay.
And then Sony also is starting this new kind of news broadcast for latest things upcoming in Sony, which they announced some things that I personally am excited for. But we'll get into that. So hello everybody, and we will start off with the Apple press conference that was today, which was March 25th. And they had just a special event at the I can't remember, Steve Jobs Center, kind of the Steve Jobs Convention Center.
Okay.
And they during there they had a few announcements of the new things, that like the new services that they're going to be rolling out over the next year. Their first service was the Apple News Plus, which is so recently Google did have their revamp their news program, or their news app site, with ability to get subscriptions and things like that through the Google News app, so that you have all your magazine subscriptions and things in one place. Well, Apple took that and did it a step further with the News Plus. So you have not just the Apple News, but the News Plus is essentially a subscription where you get a bunch of magazines, a bunch of curated magazines.
Wait,
And
that you get to curate, or they have
they
pre-curated?
pre-curate, and then they pre-curate the magazines on there, and then machine learning AI tells you which ones you might be interested in.
Okay.
And then what it is, though, is these magazines are not just copying like the pages of a magazine and putting them online, but it's redesigning the magazine for use online for your device and things like that. So they
Nice user interface.
yeah, it's a lot cleaner user interface. They have it set so that you can search magazines per article. You can when you're going through the articles, they like the display of the article, instead of you have the pictures, and then as you're scrolling through, you have the text come up, and it looks very nice as a UI. But that's Apple's thing, right? Like, Apple really makes it look nice. And yeah, it's designed so that it's basically taking the idea of a magazine and retrofitting it for the modern age of technology. So because obviously paper magazines, when you're looking on it on a device, you're essentially just kind of trying to replicate the idea of paper magazines, when this is really just creating a whole new format for magazines, essentially. Which is cool. I thought it was cool. Apparently, it's coming out for $9.99 per month.
To get access to all of these different
To get
magazines.
access to Apple News Plus, and then there is they've put a real push on privacy in this conference, So what they said about it is all your information on what you read is stored locally on your device, so it doesn't get sent to Apple servers. So what happens is when it's trying to the machine learning, what it's doing is your phone or device will grab the the category of magazines from the servers, and then connect it once it's on your device, like the list of magazines. It will do the machine learning within the device so that it will curate it on the device, which ones, like what it's recommending for you and things like that, instead of it being sent to Apple and then Apple has all of your information. That's what they presented. So that none of your what you read is being shared with advertisers and things like that. There was they mentioned this throughout the conference on all their different products. They had a really big push for making things, making sure that Apple, because I think Facebook and Google have been in the news recently of like being like, oh, they're selling all your stuff to advertisers. These are things we already knew. I guess that's a lot more in depth than people were actually hoping for. But yeah, Apple's getting that PR credit with being like, yeah, none of this is getting shared, which is nice. It is a good push for them. And the second thing they announced was they were talking about Apple Pay. So we have Google Pay because we're mainly Google people, and that's where you store your card on your phone and then you can tap to pay. Apple has the same thing. Now they came out with a couple of statistics that I thought was interesting. So Apple Pay is in like 40 countries, and they're reaching about 10 billion transactions. They're reaching that threshold this year, so it's becoming like paying with your phone is becoming more and more of a thing. I think they said Australia has like a 99% adoption rate for Apple Pay. So almost anywhere you go in there, you can just use your phone and pay for it. In the US, it's still like one of the lower ones at like 70%.
All right. So on a mini tangent here. So with my last phone, I had the case so that my credit card and my ID were in the back of my phone. But I decided that was too bulky, so when I upgraded to my new phone, I just got a slimmer case. And so now instead of being able to carry my ID and my credit card around, I just really carry around my phone because, as you know, I really don't like having to lug a purse around. I just don't. And if I do adopt Google Pay, which I imagine I probably will in the near future, that will be a lot more convenient than always having to either remember my card, or at this point I just keep giving it to you or leaving a card in your wallet.
Yeah.
Making you carry around. Yeah.
And I think and in the future, I think even IDs will be presented this way if you can get it all circulated, because with the evolution of blockchain technology and this whole like the way credit cards are being used in this process over the phone, it's not like the phone is sending credit card information, they're sending a transaction pin. And actually Apple did a very good demo, not a demo, but like they had this little presentation of like how, because they go also into the security of this, and it's essentially the same thing as your chip reader. If you have a credit card with a chip reader, you send a chip in, and that chip doesn't actually give your credit card information. It just gives a little verification pin, and it's randomly generated every time it's used, and that connects with the merchant account, and then the merchant account, make sure everything's verified and good to go. So same thing happens when you use your phone to pay. It's actually sending over a verification code, and then those verification codes are just getting synced. And so Apple had a very good like kind of visual for this, and I thought that was good because most people don't realize how that is different. The chip is different than swiping your card. And what else? They're also talking. They apparently in uh, Europe, there's a few cities that actually use this Apple Pay system to put on their mass transit cards. So here in San Francisco, we have the Clipper card, right?
Right.
That you use to get on. Well, there, I think it was a Venture card, or I can't remember what it was called over there. But essentially, you could use that card, or you can have that card on your Apple Pay, and so you can use Apple Pay for your mass transit.
That's nice. Because here you have to
Mm-hmm.
add to your Clipper. You either have to go to Walgreens or I think you can do it online, but that's kind of a hassle.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mind me.
She has allergies
Oh.
today.
Well, not
Or-
just today, but
Yeah,
recently
recently.
with the weather and the spring and the dogs.
But they announced that in Portland and Chicago, those cities are going to be utilizing Apple Pay for their mass transit payment system this year, which I thought was also like a
Chicago
cool.
is?
Chicago and
Oh.
Portland, yeah. And the last part, well, the other part to Apple Pay is Apple is actually, as one would guess, coming out with their own credit card now.
Really? Apple is?
Apple is coming out with their own credit card.
Okay, I could, yeah.
It's natural progression. I like, and they, it's when you sign up for it, you sign up through it in Apple Pay, and you get access to it almost instantly if you're approved, because it's a virtual credit card. It'll just be on your phone. And
Oh, because it is, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one benefit to it, is like you can get it pretty easily. And you can use it for transactions, obviously. The way you contact support, I thought was interesting, is that you literally just text them and it'll just use your Messenger app. So you're not going through some third party site,
have
or
to,
well,
like,
through the
look up.
website and like figure it
Yeah.
all out. It'll just, when you contact support, it just brings up your messaging app and then you just text the support
nice.
number, and then that way they can also and from there you can get details on transactions. They can just feed it to you, which I thought was also really cool. Is it will be able to, your phone will be able to track your purchases and use machine learning to correlate your purchases with your location and things like that, so that if you have, like, a lot of merchants, when you buy from the merchant, you might not even get that merchant's name. You might get like the LLC that it's incorporated by and things like that. So when you're trying to do all your transactions at the end of the month and looking to see where you bought things, sometimes it gives you like some random name. Well, it's using machine learning and GPS location where you did the transaction to be able to fix that, so that you can see where your purchases were, and it'll give you like the corresponding name of the business that you
Okay, the actual business.
that you put that purchase on. And I thought that's like, that would be hugely beneficial for anybody like that is actually going through their statements and things like that, and they're like, what is
Yeah, or
like,
sometimes it's just an address. And
yeah.
you're like, I don't, without the name of the business, I don't know what this is.
Yeah. They also have with it built in is going to be able to track your spending habits, and so you can more easily budget. But then all of this, the other things that they mentioned was their point system. They wanted it just to be pretty simple, so it's just straight cash back. So for every transaction, there's a % cash back that you get, and you get it instantly, like daily. You don't have to wait for like the end of the month or anything.
Perfect.
And
Like that.
yeah, they also had like a payment breakdown for when you're paying off the credit card. So if you decided to not pay the full amount, it would tell you exactly how much of it is going to be interest and how much and how long it would take you if you did those successive payments to pay off your credit card. And just a nice visual information for people that like when they get their statement and they're just paying the minimum and they don't really understand the nuances behind it. They just created a nice visualization for it. So, I mean, I'd give them props for that. They mentioned that like it was very much no fees. They're just like interest is pretty much all the extra charges to the credit card. No over budget fees or anything like that. No annual. It's from Goldman Sachs Bank, and it's a MasterCard.
Okay.
And then they go back into it's private, it's secure, keeping most things on your phone, and then and getting information from the cloud instead of sending things up to the cloud. So really, the only people that have your transaction history is you and Goldman Sachs. And then they said that Goldman Sachs isn't going to be selling any of that information either.
Yeah, it seems like Apple has really put together a nice card, a nice little payment system.
Yeah. And then they also said that it does actually have a physical counterpart.
If you wanted a card?
I don't know if you have to purchase it separate or if it just is going to come later on. It sounded like they didn't say anything about it purchasing separate. So I think that you just get a card when you sign up, but you have access instantly almost.
Completely virtually.
But then you will eventually get a card that has nothing but your name on it. It's a titanium card that has nothing but your name on it and the chip.
Okay, so there's like no numbers to look at and like type into your computer because it's already on
you
your
can
Apple
always,
account
you can,
and you touch to pay, right?
Yeah, you can get
Your
the numbers if you need to through your phone, but your physical card won't have the numbers on them or anything like that. And it just has a chip so that if they don't accept the Apple Pay, you can use the chip.
So here's a question. So now that this is coming out, what about those places that are still lagging behind and still don't have chip readers?
So I think
they just can't accept it.
Yeah, because as far as I could tell, the titanium card did not have a swiper on there. I could be wrong on that, but if a place requires a swipe, I don't believe you can use it.
But everything is supposed to be moving to have the chip.
Yes,
isn't it?
Government mandate.
So it kind of.
They have to, like in Europe, they've already banned swipe payments. Like you have to use the chip system. They've had that for a long time now, and over here, I think they said 2020 was when it's going to be mandated that the gas industry or for like pumps, that those are going to be needing to be switched over by 2020 to chip reader pumps. And I think that is the last of the business industries that is going to be required. And at this point, if they are not using the chip, that they're not compliant with the federal regulations, which right now doesn't impose any threat to any business. However, I don't know if given like credit card companies will always side with the person that is more in sync with the federal regulations. So if if a business is not using the chip reader, the credit card company will dismiss any actions that they have presented to them because they have to get the chip reader.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So that's all the credit card information and Apple Pay.
Okay.
Which I thought was fairly interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then they moved on to the App Store. And most notably, they are talking about how or one of the an interesting point is that games happen to be the most popular category on the App Store, which is no brainer. But what most people probably don't realize is that the iOS is the most popular gaming platform.
Apple is.
Yes, because more people have an Apple phone than any other gaming console.
Fair enough, yeah.
Individually, right? Like, and they own, like, I think that last time I checked, they were like 35% of the phone market share. So, like, it's huge. I don't know necessarily how it compares to Android, but the phone markets by far have the most gamers on it. Like, it depends on your definition of gamers. Some people will say that Candy Crush isn't a gamer, but it
is a game.
Yeah, it's a game, and more people are playing games on phones than anywhere else. That's basically
Aren't millions of people on Candy Crush alone?
Yeah, it's like they've had millions of downloads. I'm pretty sure we could actually look up how many downloads that they had through the App Store. But one problem is that the free games are doing phenomenally, but the paid for games are not. And some of these games are very much games that are on par with almost computer games. What is it? 500 million downloads.
Plus.
Yeah, plus downloads on the Google App Store.
For Candy Crush, yeah.
And
a lot of gamers.
Yeah.
Even if that's not a gamer to you.
And they have but the games that are purchased up front are the ones that are doing poorly. And some of them are like really good. Like there's the game XCOM I showed you on the strategy game. That's like they have a mobile version too. Yeah. It's a paid for mobile version and things. And there's a lot of indie games on there that are paid for up front. I think like Terraria, and you'll find a bunch of them, but they're not selling well.
Threes
was another one that was popular a while back.
What does that mean? Does that mean that you think that developers are going to start making their games free up front, but then either charging in-game more?
So there was
adding?
So what Apple did, and I think this is a kind of a clever way to go about it, is because the culture of the phone game is not like the culture of a PlayStation 4 computer game, right? PlayStation 4 on a computer, you're like, it doesn't matter how low budget the game is. There's a certain threshold. You'll pretty much buy the game, even if it's a $5 game. But that same $5 game, if you see it on your phone, you won't buy it. So what Apple did is they created what is it called? The game, the Apple Arcade. And this is a subscription service where you pay. They haven't announced how much you pay, but let's say $10 a month, and you get access to all these paid for games for $10 a month.
I see.
And then you can just download them, play them as much as you want. And
I don't think I personally would go that route, but sure.
I think it'll
for some people, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll end up making these games more utilized. Because people are going to be they're paying for the subscription, but they feel that they're getting more out of it because they get access to tons of games per month for the price of maybe one of them for a month, or however the subscription is. I doubt the subscription is going to be more than like $10 a month.
No.
But they really haven't announced it, and so, like, at the price of maybe one of the games per month, I could see a lot of people
especially if it was like
$5
a month.
And it's going to have its own separate category in the App Store, so that you'll have your games category, but then you'll have your Apple Arcade category. So it'll separate them out and give them a good distinction. And hopefully a lot of indie developers, because there's a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon. They've announced like this whole list of games that are going to be like at launch.
Okay.
And they all look like good games, like quality games. And that also is going to be curated through Apple, so you won't have the same problem that Steam has, where you're just going to get junk games.
Will the games change over time though?
Yes, they'll constantly add to
And take away?
I don't know if they're going to be taken away.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not exactly the same as how like Netflix works and things. When it comes to these gaming platforms, usually the whole idea for the game is to get on the platform and get on as many platforms as possible. Mm-hmm. And they don't really have this licensing structure like TV does or movies do, where they will sell it for a few years on one platform get it.
I've got.
And then they also said that with the arcade system, you'll get cross-platform streaming or gaming, so that you can play on your phone, computer, Apple TV, however, and then you can switch between them seamlessly, is what they suggested.
Hey, any improvement on communicating with other non-Apple products?
No, like, this is really within the Apple ecosystem. Yep. They did. Oh, yep. There's one thing I'll say is, well, in the future, or this is actually for the Apple TV, but we'll get to that. But yeah, for the most part, it's a walled garden still. It's if you have Apple, I don't think they have the Apple App Store for Android, so you have to be in the Apple ecosystem to utilize these things. They said this is coming fall 2019, no price. Then they started talking about Apple TV. And they're apparently revamping the Apple TV app. And it is going to comprise all of your subscription services and even cable services, and just put them all in one place. And it's essentially like the way it looked was exactly like the Netflix menu, but it's getting all of the content from all of your different services. So but there's only certain services that they have working. So let's say you have DirecTV for your cable, you have Hulu, and you have Amazon all as your like main video and things. Then what the Apple TV does is it will take all of those subscriptions and then just have one singular place to look for all of your videos that you want to find.
Oh, that is nice. So regardless of what you use, whether it is Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon, or could you have Google?
So this is the ones that they've talked about, or that they've mentioned in the show, were
to be able to have them all in one.
Yeah, they mentioned
UI to search.
Spectrum, I think was it. They mentioned DirecTV. They mentioned Hulu, Amazon. But the notable missing ones would be Google, obviously. Mm-hmm. I did not see Comcast in there. Mm-hmm. And Netflix was also not in there. They did say that they were also, or we'll get to that in a sec. Okay. But it's essentially like Netflix, but with all your subscriptions. So you'd have all of your subscriptions in one place, and you would browse through the different videos and movies, and it would tell you, like, at the bottom it says like where it's coming from. So this is from Hulu, or this is from Amazon, and you can search it.
That's pretty great.
I thought that was a pretty cool thing. It's still, because there's a limited amount of parties involved in it. Mm-hmm. Like you have to be within that ecosystem still to utilize it to the best.
One of the ones that it doesn't include, then that could be.
Which Netflix is like the biggest one.
Yeah.
And I did not see it in their presentation.
For Apple users, they would eventually be able to do that, but like you said, we're more Google users.
Yeah.
I hope that in the future Google has one
that would be nice if Google had something like that.
Multiple platforms at once.
Because because Google has its own cable system. And also from this, you can pay for TV subscriptions per channel too. So they did have that. But Google has its own cable system with the basic cable package, and then you can pay per additional subscription channel like Showtime and HBO and things like that. So they do have that, but then like if you want to carry Netflix into it and things like that, you have to go to all the different sites. Which, I mean, that's how we've been living life as it is. Apple TV was obviously going to make that easier for the people that are in that Apple ecosystem. And DirecTV hopefully is in your area. Well, DirecTV is satellite, so you can get it anywhere. But if you, like, let's say, have Comcast, you know, you're kind of railroaded, especially since cable companies have divided up the country to be monopolies. And you're boned out of luck if you just happen to be somewhere where you can't get satellite and Comcast is your only option. The the other thing is they said that coming this fall they're going to be adding the Apple TV to smart TVs. They said that it's going to be coming to smart TVs on Samsung, Sony, Vizio, and it's also going to be added to the Roku and Amazon Fire Stick. So even if you don't have an Apple TV little box, you can still get the app if you have a smart TV.
Okay.
Then they also announced that they're going to be creating the Apple TV Plus, which is Apple's own TV channel, basically, where they're getting a bunch of people to create original content for their channel.
Okay.
And it's going to be a subscription service. It's a streaming TV service, and you're going to be able to see the originals. You're going to be able to download them. It's a no ad, so once you buy the subscription, you don't have to worry about ads.
No ads.
And they had like a bunch of people showcasing their TV lineup that they're going to be coming in. So Jason Momoa, or whatever his name is, for Aquaman, he has a TV show that's going to be on there about blind people. Apparently the whole world had this apocalypse, and the only survivors, like the entire human race, went blind. And then now it's centuries later where people don't even remember being able to see, and like society centuries later after a blind population. I thought that was a cool concept. But then they had people I saw on Twitter were like kind of not liking this segment, because really it was just Apple bringing out a bunch of celebrities to try to sell this a TV Plus app. So you had Jason, you had Steve Carell, Jennifer Aniston, J.J. Abrams.
Oh yeah.
They Steven Spielberg, and they even had Big Bird on there. But then they closed it off with Oprah, and Oprah is going to be coming back with her own show, and her own book club apparently is back.
Huh.
And so that, because of that, I was just like, oh, okay, maybe they might actually get this thing to sell with Oprah if Oprah's going to be on there. But then I was watching on Twitter, and Marquez, MKBHD, he was like, I just want to be a fly on the wall in that green room where all the people are sitting in the back. You have Big Bird back there, you have Steve Carell, Oprah, like everybody just sitting back there waiting. But yeah, so that was the Apple conference in a nutshell, with the TV, the credit card, and the App Store, and the News Plus was their big announcements that are all coming this year.
Okay, so they're not yet, but they're this year.
Yeah, they're going to be coming this year. Some as early as by spring, some of them in the spring season, and then some as late as fall.
By spring has already happened.
Well, they said spring of 2019
All
is
right,
what they
well,
said.
any day now.
And then the other things that happened this week is Google Stadia was announced, which is Google trying to get into the gaming world. And it is a game streaming service. So
it's not a selling platform like Steam or like the Epic Games.
yeah, so it's
store?
separate from the Steam and Epic. There was a game. There was a company 5 years ago, all over YouTube. You saw what is cloud gaming? Like the ad. What is
Oh.
cloud gaming? You remember that ad
No.
everywhere? Oh, okay. So that was on YouTube on every single video. There's what is cloud gaming, and then they were trying to talk, and it was I can't remember what the company even was. Everybody knows the ad, and but it ended up flopping because it turns out that streaming a game over the internet and having the user's experience actually be any way decent is almost impossible, especially in this day and
because you're
age.
reliant on the internet to not only transmit all of the actions you're doing in the game, but the internet would have to send all of the information to your computer about what the game should be processing, what it should look like and sound like, and how things are interacting and moving, right? That's why.
Yes.
You
and
need the game itself downloaded
there's-
at your end or on a disk. It needs to be there. So your computer's just processing that and not relying on the internet, because you'd need a lot of bandwidth.
You would need a lot of bandwidth. You would need the computers themselves need to have a lot of processing power that is doing this.
Okay.
And then also a big problem is a lag time between the controller and what comes to screen. And so there's a few things that Google did that who knows if it'll work or not. They obviously touted a super impressive stats for their servers that
so theirs is a cloud-based.
It is a cloud-based streaming platform. So
What was it called? Stadia?
Stadia. So Stadia is going to be Google's version of cloud gaming.
Okay.
Where you have a subscription and you get access to their catalog of games, and you stream the games to your phone, to your computer, to your tablet, or to your TV, and you can seamlessly switch between them.
Okay, so okay, if Google can make it happen, great. But here's one thing that I'm wondering about. Google Fi, as users of Google Fi, their internet usage isn't unlimited. So if you're at home where you're probably not even playing on your phone, you're probably playing on a computer anyways, then you're not using it. But if you're away from home, you're using your Google Fi and you're being charged per every bit. So then you're using twice as much internet too. So basically, you really wouldn't want to use Google's cloud gaming if you are a Google service user.
In general, you probably are not going to want to use cloud gaming if you are using mobile data anyways, because the internet capacity for that is just not going to work.
Okay.
Maybe with 5G, they might do it. But
okay. So usually you would be at least somewhere where
you would have at least Wi-Fi.
But like, if you're at a place where it's public internet and it's very already bogged down with lots of people, you're still not gonna.
Yeah, like it's probably, as far as I can tell, that it won't work. It won't work that well. The benefit for this is for people that don't have super high-end computers, or just have they're just casual gamers that are interested in games but don't want to buy a computer and buy games and
make it stay on their phone.
So they might just have their phone as their only device in their house, or with a TV, or maybe their laptop at most. And
true. So Google,
you could stream it that way and
computer,
play.
laptop, tablet.
Yeah, and so like that's where the idea comes in play.
Yeah.
That as a good, it's like a play on Stadium.
Yeah.
They had like this whole thing where everybody's like, they had this whole ad where everybody over the centuries have conversed to play the game. What was it? No, you can see right there that it's not opening.
Well, I wasn't sure if that was above the door. Anyways.
So they had this whole advertisement of people gathering in stadiums throughout the history of the world to watch people play games, and this is just a new stadium. It was kind of on point advertisement, but it was all right. Like as far as we know, cloud gaming hasn't worked. The closest thing that we've had is PlayStation has their PlayStation Plus, I think it was. No, not PlayStation Plus, PlayStation View, where you can stream games. But those are PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 games, so not very intensive, especially in this day and age. What they also, another thing that they mentioned on top of the stats for the servers was that the controller that's used for it is not connected to your phone or device. It's actually connecting straight to your Wi-Fi, which I am interpreting it as it doesn't relay a signal to your phone, which relays the controller to the phone, which relays it to the server. The controller is sending direct signal to the server, and then the server sending the feedback to the phone. And then that way you can switch between the different screens. So if you want to switch from your phone to your TV, you can do that without having to reconnect the controller to a different device. And then B, the lag input between the controller is minimized. So if anybody can do this, it would be Google, but we will see if this actually works, because I don't know. And then they said that there's going to be integration with YouTube, so that when you're playing the game, you can stream the game, you can YouTube correlate. I mean, obviously it's Google, YouTube, so it makes sense. And people have been speculating that, they actually advertised, like if you see this happening on Google or on YouTube, like if you're watching somebody streaming, it'll have like a little ad playing now, right? And then you can be in the game within seconds of turning it on. Or within seconds of watching somebody streaming, and you're like, I want to play that, you can just hit play.
Very interesting.
So that's what they're advertising, and then who knows what this means monetization wise for gamer streamers, things like that. If people are playing the game because your referral link and things like that, getting monetized for that. The last thing I wanted to mention was, what was it? Oh, Sony's state of play. So the Sony just announced just had a state of play video, which I thought was interesting. Like it's a little kind of almost a little press release that they're doing on social media of all the different things that they're planning on doing within the coming months, or like games they're doing. I personally was super excited when they announced that No Man's Sky, their new update, which has been, which if you don't know, it's like a space simulator game that I've been really into. I know it sucked at first, and then like now it's been getting better. They've been recently talking about a better multiplayer, but when Sony announced their thing, they said that it is going to be coming to VR on the PlayStation VR. And hopefully that means that it'll also, with the update on the computer, that will also have the VR update too. But
so you'll be flying the spaceships as if you're in 3D.
Yeah, as if you're in the cockpit, which if you played Elite Dangerous is similar. But with No Man's Sky, you not only can do that, but you can go land on the planet, build up your base.
Okay, that's right.
Do all of that.
It's pretty cool.
In VR. Oh man, it was like a perfect game for VR, and I'm glad that they actually are doing it. And there was a few other games in there, but that's the one I wanted to mention because that was super hype for that. There's other VR games. PlayStation's doing the biggest push for VR than even Steam is, and they have their own VR system too. So like it'll be interesting to see which one of those things from the state of play is translating over to computer, because there's a lot of stuff that's on there is also on computer too. So who knows if it like Sony has any exclusivity to it. They didn't mention it, but they also didn't aren't going to say anything about computer because they're trying to sell their system. So that's that.
All right. Well, until next time then.
Until next time, thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed the rundown of the week because I think it might actually end up getting a bit more busy as Google has their Next 19 coming up. That's a Google press conference of I think that's the main coding stuff and background stuff. So it might not be interesting to you, but we'll probably.
You'll be
Apple also has the WDCC conference of Apple products coming in the next year, and Google has another conference of products that the launch lineup. But I don't remember if that's still this early in the year or not.
Well, we've got other questions if those are spaced out. That works too.
Yep.
But for this week, that'll do it.
Have a great one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed.